Hello, Orbis here, and welcome to another edition of Ranking Every Track on Beatles Albums. And today we're going to be tackling Yellow Submarine, which arguably doesn't really count, but I want to talk about the songs that are on this album, so I think it's worth doing this one, even though this is going to be a pretty short video, because obviously I'm only going to be counting the first side, because the second side is all George Martin orchestra stuff, since obviously this is a soundtrack album for the Yellow Submarine film. And honestly, there isn't a ton of worth in this album, even on the first side, because two of the tracks were on previously released, and which leaves only 4 new songs, and with maybe one exception, they're not really top tier Beatles tracks, in my opinion. And but ranking them was actually kind of tough. But I wouldn't say that any of these I dislike. But let's just get into the ranking. So I ended up putting at the bottom. I ended up putting All Too Much, the George Harrison song. Now this is a hidden gem of sorts. It's extremely psychedelic with a quite a heavy riff. I don't know if I love this song. I feel like I need to be in a specific mood to listen to this, because this is so wild, and it's definitely a contrast to Sgt. Pepper's in that it's so much less refined. It's got that psychedelic style to it, but it's so much more chaotic. And I think if I'm in the mood for it, then I absolutely love this stuff. This is it makes me think of like Pink Floyd's Interstellar Overdrive, which is just like psychedelic madness, and it's not really for everyone. Also, the song is super long. I think it's like the longest Beatles song that's not Revolution 9. And yes, if I'm not in the mood for this style, then it can drag a bit. And next up, I've put the other George Harrison song, Only a Northern Song, which similarly to All Too Much, it's not quite as heavy, but it's still like just pure psychedelic weirdness. And if I'm in the mood for it, then I absolutely love it. And I'm surprised that I put both the George Harrison songs at the bottom, but I re-listened to the whole side one for this video, and yeah, they ended up being the weakest ones for me when I listened to it. But I think, like I said, if I listen to it in the right mood, then I might think they're the best songs on the album. And I do really like them, and I do consider them to be kind of hidden gems, because they weren't on past masters, they weren't singles, they were just put on this album. And then next up, I put All Together Now, which is it's very similar to Yellow Submarine. It feels like very much a children's song, but even more so. It feels like it was written for kids to sing along to. And it's enjoyable, but I think it could get annoying if you hear it too many times. Next up, I put Yellow Submarine, which I think originally I thought I was going to rank lower, but I thought, although it's, it was already on Revolver, and I considered it to be one of the weaker tracks on the album. But this time I ended up ranking it higher just because it's pretty iconic, and it's not one of my favourite Beatles songs at all, but I do have a lot of nostalgia for it because we used to sing it in school, and I don't know, I think it's pretty iconic. And at number 2, I've put All You Need Is Love, which is another really iconic Beatles song. It's one of their most famous and well-known ones. It's got a nice message to it. It's very uplifting. It's one that's not like one of my personal favourites. I don't really go back to it much, but it's good. It's iconic. And at number 1, I went with Hey Bulldog, which is no question. I knew immediately that Hey Bulldog will be at number 1. I absolutely love. I adore that song, and it's easily the best thing that came out of this album. It's got a very groovy riff, and yeah, like John Lennon said, it's not, the lyrics don't really mean much, but it doesn't matter. It's a groovy track, and I always have a good time listening to it. It's and I believe, I might be mistaken, but I think the story with this song is they wrote it. They needed to record a music video for Lady Madonna, the single, so they recorded themselves recording another song, Hey Bulldog, which doesn't really make sense to me, but sure. So the music video for Lady Madonna, it's just them singing a different song, which is weird. But I guess Hey Bulldog technically has its own music video. Anyway, yeah, Hey Bulldog is fantastic, and it's probably a top tier Beatles song, or at the very least like second tier. It's fantastic. But all in all, the Yellow Submarine album is not super strong, but it's not like it was meant to be a proper album anyway. It's just a soundtrack. And I wanted, for this series, I wanted to do every Beatles album, so this technically counts, so I had to do it. But that means that next up is Abbey Road, which will be an interesting one. So I'll see you when I do that. Thank you for watching. Please tell me what your ranking is in the comments. Like the video if you liked it, subscribe if you want to see more, and I'll see you soon. Goodbye.